Hey everyone, my name is Rooster, and welcome back to Mechabellum. Bit of a shorter video today, but it does feature Fire Badgers, which is a unit that I don't get to feature all that often on my channel. It's not a unit that I play a whole bunch, but every now and then the situation is right, and well, we do get a chance to try and make them shine. Gonna be up against Zemp in this one. He is going to pick the Supply Specialist with the Sabers and the Hounds. Very, very popular pack, very popular specialist as well. Hence the low hit points. And, well, on my side, training spec looked fine. Sledgehammer Arc, I think, is still a staple of just a very solid pack that really can't go wrong against pretty much anything your opponent may pick. But, you know, Sabers are also very nice, and I was feeling like I wanted to play some aggro. And, well, Fire Badger Specialist is, of course, what we have. Nice thing about this is you get one for free on round 3. Of course, the unlock has already been taken for you, and your Fire Badgers will have 10 range extra, which is meaningful because the unit doesn't have that much base range. I believe that it has 60 base, which is definitely on the lower end of things, especially for chaff clear, right? Something like Hound already has 10 more base. Now, looks like we're going to be in a headbutt here. Not exactly super favorable for me, I'd say. The matchup that is Hound into Fang is always nice because the Hounds already one-shot them. And yeah, I mean, my opponent gets to buy some crawlers. Now, here already I was thinking, well, do I really want to be stuck buying Hounds and playing, you know, pretty much a mirror into Supply Specialist who already started with one more Hound than I can buy, and when I am going to have Fangs that might feed into his Hounds? And I felt like, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to try and, you know, get out of the mirror as much as possible. This is something that you'll hear me say a lot. It's a big part of my kind of play style as well, but I don't like getting into mirrors, especially if I'm not entirely sure, right, that I can prove an advantage within it. Because mirrors are mostly decided about, you know, who gets levels first, who gets techs first, and who has more deployments of the given unit that you're mirroring. Now, you know, in the Hound matchup, I will already be behind one, even if I buy 2 Hounds. And I'll be behind in money, so presumably I'll be behind in techs as well. And so it's really not something that I wanted to do. And instead, I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to buy my crawlers, and yes, that means that on round 1, I have no chaff clear, basically, right? I mean, I have Fangs, which can kind of work, as you can see here, during the debuff. But they're definitely not meant to chaff clear. But I was thinking, well, I might go into something like Wraith, or I might be able to use my Fire Badgers. But that was the thought process here on the first round, and why I have nothing but chaff on round 1. And obviously we do lose. Now, the difference is, my opponent has very few hit points. I had quite a lot to start with. So I can afford to do this. I'm still sitting at 4,400. And yeah, really, I'm not too afraid here. Round number 2, we got a bunch of decent cards. Electromagnetic Impact. It has a low cooldown, but there's not much to do. I guess you could slow things down. Laser Sight might be a worthwhile pickup if I want to go into something like Wraith. Also just good if I want to go into something like, you know, a Phoenix or any unit of that sort. Even on a Fire Badger, honestly, it might not be that bad. Opponent picks up the Laser Sight. Extended Range Marksman is a fun card if you run Assault mode on Marksman, but not exactly what I want to try and, you know, make work into enemy Sabers, and it's a bit, you know, out there. If I had Marksman on the board already, you know, maybe I would consider it, especially if I was something like Marksman spec, but here, it's either the Laser Sight or the Skip for me. And we'll have to see what I decide to do on the given round. Now, I am a bit afraid of, like, anti-air here. I don't have too much, or well, I have very little, in fact. I only have some Fangs on the front lines. Do end up picking up that Laser Sight. And looks like we're going to go for a Crawler. I'm going to put that here on the line, or on the flank in the middle. And the reason is I have nothing in front of my tower, so I can actually get away with a pretty deep-ish flank, and it will still pull a fair few of his units. And the idea here is that I might be able to beacon it up or add a Fire Badger, and then, you know, all of these squishier units can get targeted easily. And more importantly, his Saber won't be going to my tower, which I do level up. So it's a very tame round here. I just buy a Fang to cover for a flank here. I level my tower, and I go for another flank to try and stall. And you can see what it has done. my crawler died, but now the units are trying to retarget. And that means that only these hounds and a couple crawlers are going to my level 2 tower. And that's going to take way, way longer to get a debuff. We do manage to get one. Obviously, you know, my fangs are pretty slow. So am I getting much value out of this? Not really. Eventually, my tower will fall as well. And presumably, I will take some more damage. But I have managed to at least take out one Sabertooth. And, well, I'll be just below 4k hit points. But now we're kind of at the same amount of hit point total, and we have some free units. I get my Fire Badger, and now at least I have a good setup, right? I did buy quite a lot of chaff, so now I can start to prioritize the more important units. Now, round number 3, Marksman does show up. Maybe I should have taken that extended range after all. Would have been nice, but here it is. Opponent does pick it. Phoenix looks really good for me here. Tarantula, I was considering, but considering I already had Fire Badgers, I felt like, you know, going Tarantula didn't make too much sense. And Tarantula can be vulnerable down the line into something like Saber. Important thing to note, by the way, is if you want Fire Badgers to be your main chaff clear unit, have a quick look whether or not your opponent runs armor on their hounds. If they do, you're probably going to have to go for something else. I had already checked this beforehand, and so, or well, during this round perhaps. And so I know that I can go for something like Phoenix here, and use the Fire Badgers as my chaff clear without having to worry too much about armor. Because that's the thing about Fire Badgers. They are incredibly bad against armor. It is not even close. I mean, you might think something like Mustang is bad into armor. Level 1 Mustang deals 36 damage. Level 1 Badger deals 28. You could click Scorch. It doesn't matter. Level 1 Hound crushes these, right? Level 2 Badger can't even damage a level 1 Hound with armor. That's how bad it is. So that's why I'm mentioning it here, because it is something that is definitely worth taking into account. It's a must in that regard. But I know that it isn't there, so I can go for triple Badger. One here on the right. We do have some Fangs to help chaff clear, so I felt like that was okay. Right side, we decided to spawn in some Badgers on the flank to start toasting some of these chaff units over there, and then a Badger behind the level tower, which is going to turn as a marksman shows up on the flank. And this looks really good. We of course added the Phoenixes to have some anti-air and some extra DPS. Very classic combination, by the way, if you're wondering what you should play along your Badgers. Badger Phoenix is a staple. Can also go for other flying units though, something like, you know, Raiden or Boat. Boats would probably be my preferred unit, but those are definitely very safe. And then you might even try to go for something like Abyss if you really want to, but usually it's going to be Phoenix. And I mean, look at that. Amazing turn for us. So much damage dealt, and that's worth losing those first 2 rounds, right? It's an important concept. Like, you don't have to worry about losing the first round sometimes, right? You might understand that you're in a worse position, so you're willing to sacrifice, especially the earlier rounds where there's less units on the board and you're going to take less damage, so that later on your setup is going to be a bit better, and at least you'll have dealt with some of the other essentials for your comp, right? You cannot skip buying chaff, and you're deployment limited, so you're not going to be able to buy all the chaff that you want in a single turn. So why not buy it early on, and then prioritize the other units that you're going to get later because of a specialist, because of a unit drop, on those rounds, and then you already have set up most of your chaff, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. Now, this round, I decided to go for another tech here. I take the redeployment. That can allow you to go for some very annoying plays, especially on the flanks. And we pick up another tech on the Fire Badgers immediately, the Scorch. It's quite cheap, and it buffs the attack by 100%, so worth clicking. And again, especially when the opponent doesn't run things like armor on the Hounds, that looks mighty juicy. There's Hounds, Crawlers, Mustangs, even the Marksman currently. He does run Assault mode, but hasn't clicked it. Those are all definitely worthwhile for these Fire Badgers to hit. And you can see I move the Fire Badger down with redeploy. Important trick here if you didn't know about it. If something's already spawned in on a flank, you can then move it on the same flank, and it will stay spawned in, even though it's moved. Very, very powerful trick there. We managed to take out some units. Of course, the Badger turns, but hey, we stalled a good amount. Left side in the meantime is doing great. Looks like there is a Mustang that's been added, kind of annoying my Saber there, so I might want to add another Fire Badger to deal with this. very important thing to kind of look at. How is the fight progressing? What do you see that's holding you back? On the strong side, on the weak side, are they getting to your tower too fast? Are you not getting into their tower fast enough? Why is that? Is it a DPS issue? Are they locking onto your important units too fast, meaning that you need more chaff? Or are you getting stuck on their small units and do you need more chaff clear? And so yeah, here, close round, but look at this. Tag team between these two. Fire Badgers clearing for the Phoenixes. And we will win the round, but it's not quite as convincing as the one prior. Good thing for Zemp, because he was starting to get a bit low. I mean, still 2200. Now, round number 5, unit reinforcements show up once more. Arclights, Void Eyes, Typhoons, and Scorpions. Now, I kind of know that Zemp's going to pick Scorpion here because, well, I'm playing Fire Badgers, so that does make sense. And I decided to go for the Void Eyes. I've been liking Void Eyes a lot as of late, and I'm running or playing them even, you know, as a DPS carry, not even as, you know, that energy absorption kind of frontline tank that can provide DPS, but I'm legitimately clicking range and charge shots and even suppression shots sometimes, and I've been happily surprised at how well they do. Now, I'm going to stack my left side even more because I felt like there wasn't much pressure coming into the right. And I mean, I've got the tower leveled, so honestly, should be able to stop anything coming this way. Opponent puts the 2 Scorpions here on the left, more Mustangs being picked up too. I decided to move the Fire Badger back up because I thought my opponent might try and put the Rhino back down to try and kind of keep chasing that Fire Badger. But ice cold as he leaves it there. I think he redeployed maybe a marksman back to the main board, something like that. Range on the Scorpions. And then that's going to be it. He probably should try and kind of pressure the right tower a bit more, though, because I am getting away with murder somewhat. But as you can see, top left here, Fire Badger being added. Left of that Saber, we also have a Fire Badger. And that should kind of deal with the issues that we had. I'm trying to pull away his units so that we get easier locks on this side. And, well, as you can see, you might have some Scorpions to deal with the Fire Badgers, but if you can't get through the chaff fast enough, and if I have, you know, good DPS to back up my Fire Badgers, like these level 2 Phoenixes and some of the Void Eyes, and it doesn't really matter that the opponent gets Scorp. And it's also part why I don't particularly love playing Scorp. I really like the design. I think it's a very cool unit. But if you have sufficient DPS and sufficient chaff to distract them, you should be able to take them out before they decimate your whole team. And yeah, look at that. Unit drop round, nothing changed. We made a good call, and suddenly that's 1,000 more damage, and Zemp is down to 1,300. Round number 6, additional deployment slot shows up. Zemp insta-picks it. There is a mobilized battleship that could be a bit scary. Normally, I do like additional deployment slot, but advanced power system is insane on aggro. If you can afford it, you almost always should be picking it. Speed is not to be underestimated. One of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, kind of additional stat that you can have when pushing in. And because it's round 6 and the game might not last that much longer, I decide not to go for the additional deployment, right? I want to pile on the pressure. I don't want this game to go for 3 more rounds and both of us to get, you know, 3 more deployments out of a card. I want this game to end now or next turn, right? And speed is really going to help with that. So we go temp speed, we take the loan a little bit earlier than, you know, the round 7 usual, but a good thing to do when you feel like you've got the pressure, you've got that momentum, and just keep building it. Opponent decides to go for Hounds with the Incendiary Bomb, and then layers some oil. I have the exact same play in mind, because, well, I have some Fire Badgers, so I can light it. And we go Charge Shot on the Void Eyes. Not sure if I should go Charge Shot here, or if I should go Range. I feel like Range actually does make more sense. There was a lot of clumping of my units, and I think a lot of my Void Eyes died because of that, so not the biggest fan of this, but we'll have to see if it does anything. Right side, we're piling more Fire Badgers, kind of trying to insta-lock these Badgers, these Hounds. We moved this one back down, and now we really have this kind of, yeah, box of Fire Badgers. I also put a shield on the left, because I was a little bit afraid that he might do something along these lines, but I mean, look at that. Instant fire lands, everything burns, and that means that the Scorpions are completely exposed to the level 2 Phoenixes, to these Charge Shot Void Eyes. And as the right side is getting toasted, the left side has completely vanished. And that will be the game in 6 rounds. So it can be this quick sometimes if you make the correct calls, if your opponent doesn't quite properly pressure, right? There's always a mind game going on. Like, is my tower going to get leveled more? Am I actually going to put more units down there? Should you defend the left side more because you could get crushed or not? And yeah, you make a couple of right reads on my end or wrong reads on my opponent's end, and this is how things can end up. Fun though, to make some Fire Badgers work. I feel like you don't see this too often. I certainly don't in my games. I'm not the biggest Fire Badger player. I feel like they do struggle against a ton of things. But, you know, when you have enough units to kind of tank for them, these early Sabers that level, plenty of chaff set up, some leveled Phoenixes, which are, I mean, always going to perform well, then you can make them shine. Again, most important thing is make sure your opponent doesn't run armor on something like Hounds if they start with it, because it can be a big problem. Armor on any unit, to be honest. So on Sledgehammers too, but I guess people don't necessarily want to spam Sledgehammers that much. You can pair Fire Badger with Hacker too. So if they go for like the mid-sized units, the 200 costs with armor, like Rhino or, you know, Sledgehammer and Steel Ball, then you could also try and hacker your way through things. But yeah, this is it. This is the game I wanted to show you guys. I hope that you liked it. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Let me know down below what you think of the Fire Badger. Is it one of your favorite units, or is it one of your least used ones? Let me know. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. If you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.